Hello and welcome to another author interview. I'm excited to be joined by Marian L. Thomas. She's an award-winning author of 6 women's fiction novels. She's a wife. She says she'll never turn down a big bag of popcorn or a can of grape pop. She adores dogs. She watches a lot of cat videos. And she's a firm believer that aspiring writers should live, laugh, and write in that order. She's been featured on Fox, NBC, CBS, and USA Today, among other media. She's won numerous awards, and most recently, her novel, The Caged Butterfly, received the USA Best Book Fiction Award for African American fiction. My name is Chelsea Ciccone. I am part of the editorial team with booktrib.com, the leading source for book news and reviews. And I'm really excited to have Marian here today to talk about her newest novel, Someone Like Me, which launched earlier this week. So hi, Marian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Yes, it's so lovely to have you here. And so what has this week been like launching a book?
Oh my word. Very chaotic. I mean, it's, every day I'm doing interviews. I've been getting a lot of emails from people, from supporters, from readers, which is really exciting. Everyone's like, congratulations. And, that's always exciting, but yeah, it's been very, very busy for me. I actually have another live interview on Instagram today at 4:00. So
wow,
yeah, it's been busy, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
Definitely. You got to get in front of the readers, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you didn't always think that you would be a novelist, right? You were had journalist aspirations, but I know you've said that now you can't really imagine doing anything else. You're writing these incredible books for women. You're bringing characters to life, and all of your characters are facing real obstacles, and they're crossing really difficult barriers to find love and discovering everything that life has to offer. So I'm wanting to know, what about these themes appeals to you, and why are these the things that you include in your novels?
Well, I write women's fiction, and I think it's important when in writing women's fiction that you speak to women in a way that's relatable, that has elements of realism in the book. And so that's something that I really strive to do when I'm writing books, is to, when a reader reads a story or can relate to a character because that character somehow touched them in a way that was real, that means I've done my job, and that's awesome. I really like the fact that when I'm writing a female character and I can really show her journey, I try to compare my characters to butterflies. When you think about butterflies, they start off in that really kind of ugly, and they kind of really ugly. They don't look like that, in the beginning, but they're really quite, caterpillars, and then they go through that transformation, and then out comes this really beautiful butterfly. And that's really how each of my characters in my books, it's that transformation that they go through. And in the end, they do discover all the wonderful possibilities that life can offer, and they do become this beautiful butterfly in a sense. So it's something that I enjoy doing.
That is really well put. That's beautiful. I love that.
Thank you.
So let's talk about the new book, Someone Like Me. Yeah. Readers have described it as heartbreaking and breathtaking. And can you explain what this book is about?
Well, Someone Like Me is a really heartwarming drama. At the heart of Someone Like Me is Maya Day. And I have to tell you that I really love Maya as a character. I adore the journey that she is on, the journey that she takes throughout the book. Readers really get to see a woman who is struggling with the color of her skin, the texture of her hair, and who's really trying to find the ability to love herself, to really see her worth and to see her value. And I think also Someone Like Me is good for readers that are looking for a story that shows that a character that is flawed, a character that has made serious mistakes in their life, because it really shows that as women, that even though we've made bad decisions, even though we've made mistakes, it doesn't have to define who we are, or it doesn't have to define our future, so we have that empowerment, that ability to create a better future for ourselves. But it does start with believing in ourselves. And so that's something that is at the heart of the story of Someone Like Me.
That is really, really beautiful. It's no wonder that early readers have been responding really well. I personally love stories with flawed. I don't really think you want to read about a character that's perfect. I mean, you need a little bit of something,
Absolutely.
But it's so great to see a character blossom and to see them grow and, turn over that new leaf and believe in themselves. That's really lovely.
Yes.
So speaking of Maya, she's experienced a lot of loss in her life, and, she's now, experiencing like a new career and new love interests. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering where the inspiration for her comes from. Is she modeled after someone that or?
I think Maya is a lot of different women that I've met in my life, including myself. In the book is the concept of journaling, which is what Maya does. She is introduced to this concept of journaling, and at first she believes it's more like keeping a diary, and she's like, oh, that's kind of like, but really, journaling is a concept of adulting, and she really finds that that's what she's trying to do. She's 27 years old and she's adulting. And so now she needs a way to experience life through herself, through her own eyes, and having a journey allows her to do this. And so I think, and that was really inspired by my sister who loves to journal. She actually journals every single day for 15 minutes each day. She sits down and she writes her thoughts, and so that's where I got that concept from, that inspiration for this story. So I do think when it comes to Maya that readers will find something in her that they can relate to, because as women, I mean, let's face it, I mean, there's always something about ourselves that we don't like.
Very true.
There's always something that we're struggling with. And there's always moments in our life when we have to do a self-examination. So I definitely think that that's something, again, that readers will connect to.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. So can you talk a little bit more about the title? Because this is sort of the central question in the book. This is something that Maya is really, struggling with, is how can someone love someone like me?
Yes. It goes back to that point I was making earlier about the fact of her struggles, the journey that she's actually taking. She started off in life where, someone, a young boy in school throws mud on her and tells her that, she's not worthy, and so it's so interesting when we're young, the things that are said to us, how that affects us, even as we grow older, and we should know better, but it has an emotional effect on us. And so for her, it's something that molded her, shaped her personality in a way. And so to break that cycle, that way of thinking, she really has to discover the answer. Not so much can another man love someone like her. She has to determine, can she love someone like her? So it's a two-way street. So it's a great question that I think any woman has to, at some point in her life, answer for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, self-love is, I think it's very important. And I think, right now, especially young women, we're faced with a lot of things that outside sources, and you don't always think that you're worthy. And I think books like this and messaging that, you know, yes, you are, and you don't have to be any one particular way. And, you know,
right.
Who are you listening to? And
right.
You know, it has to come from within. That's just so incredibly important.
Exactly. And we're seeing so much diversity and just women in general. You know, we're seeing, you know, women that have hair that's textured. We're seeing women that have hair that's curly, you know, women that have hair that's straight. And it used to be a time when there was a certain image that women needed to portray. And a lot of women look to fit into that mold. And now as women, we're finding that we have to create the mold of our own, you know, and, you know, we have to look for a way to pioneer, you know, a realistic journey that other younger women can follow, you know, and it's not a journey of perfection. You know, it's not a journey of perfection. It's a journey of empowerment. And so that's something that Maya also has to learn as well.
Yeah, that's really, really well put. I really like that. I mean, this book, I mean, you know, as I was preparing for this interview and reading all the wonderful things that people had to say about it, I mean, it's clear that this is the message that people were connecting to and felt really empowered by. And so that's just so lovely that you've been able to like put this out into the world and really connect with women that way. That's really wonderful.
Thank you. Yes. I mean, it's, it's not, it's a drama book. It's not a romance, although there are elements of romance within the book. But it's really, it's really about transformation and a journey. So that is the strongest two elements within the book.
Yeah. Now, so when we're, as readers, when we're looking at books, you have those books that people will tell you, you have to give it 50 pages, you have to give it 100 pages. And then there's books, I think like yours, where you really just capture people from the get-go. And so if you don't mind, I wanted to read a small passage from your book. This is from the first chapter.
Sure.
So, we're under the stars, blending in with the black sheets covering the sky, or so I hope. Z sits next to me, both of our hearts racing. Z's eyes staring into mine like he's checking to see if the bones in my body are strong enough to do what he's asking me to do. Rob Mr. Johnson's gas station. Yeah. And I think this is a perfect illustration of what people are going to get in this book. Clearly great writing. But also that drama, that anticipation of, oh my gosh, they're gonna rob something.
Yes.
And so clearly you don't have to wait long with your book to really get into it. You're into it right from the beginning. So can you tell us a little bit about how you write and develop your style and structure your story? Are you one of those people that maps everything out from the beginning, or are you more of like a fly by the seat of your pants kind of gal?
Wow. I wish I was one of those people that maps out everything from the beginning. I talk to some authors and they're great. I mean, they literally outline every single chapter. They, map out their characters. It's like a movie. I mean, literally, you have like a big board and, it's all the scenes and, no, that's not me. I mean, I literally turn on my computer and start typing. That's my process. I get a big cup of coffee and, and I tend to write late in the evening. I always tell people that, I write, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning when my husband is snoring. And that's very true. It's very, very true. He hates but it's true. But that's when I can really get a lot done. And I really enjoy that process. But yeah, I don't have an outline. I don't, map things out. I just turn on the computer and I just try to think about, if this character were a real woman, what emotions would she feel? What would the situation be? How would she act? And I just try to go from there, and sculpt a story that that can really become something.
So would you say that you're more motivated or inspired by the characters themselves rather than the situations that they're in? Or how do you approach a new project?
I would say that I'm really inspired when it comes to writing from life. I mean, I really take, for instance, my husband and I were coming through Tennessee, and we were coming through this little town, and it was like this dirt road town. It had like one gas station and a car dealership, and the cars looked older than the roads themselves. And I thought, wow, what would it be like if there were a young woman in this town that was really looking to get out of this? What would be her dream? How would she do it? And that's how I wrote a book called Aqua Blue. And so it's the same thing for someone like me. It's like, okay, I know that this is the struggle that my character is going to go through. Struggling with the color of her skin, struggling with the texture of her hair. Some people consider Black women's hair to be nappy, or some people say it's coarse, or some people say it's that. But it's also not just some people, it's about how we actually think of our hair ourselves, and so she goes through that journey as well. And so I knew that was something that I wanted to bring out into the book. Even on the cover, you see her and she has natural hair. And so that was important as well. And so that's something that kind of becomes the inspiration for the rest of the story, because now you're trying to show the character moving through the process of rehabilitating their mind, changing their thoughts, and coming out on the other side where they can actually see themselves as something, as we talked about earlier, as something beautiful.
That's lovely. And by the way, the cover is absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
It's so beautiful. It's summery. The model on the cover just looks so happy. I don't have it with me, but I do have on my phone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just you want to read the book. That looks so lovely.
Yeah.
Every part of it is inviting.
Yeah.
So with this book in particular, what parts of it were like the most fun to write, and like conversely, what was more challenging for you to write?
I think the fun part was writing the supporting characters. I really liked writing the story of Jack and Mary, which are two of the main characters that really play a role in Maya's life and helping her to see herself for what she truly is. I think Jack's character in particular, Jack is one of those characters that, believes in keeping it real, and he's going to tell you like it is, and he's not going to beat around the bush. And, he may hurt your feelings, but it's not intentional because, it comes from the heart. We all have friends like that. And sometimes it hurts when they tell us the truth. But he's also understanding, and he's rooting for her, and he's in her corner. And we need those type of friends as well. So I think that was the most fun, part of the book to write, was the character of Jack, because I could see so many Jacks in my life. Like even my husband, he's like that Jack, that person that keeps it real, and but he's always motivating and encouraging, and you can do it, and helping me to step out of my comfort zone and supporting me, and all of that. But I also think the most difficult part to write in the book was just Maya and what she was going through in the beginning. The letters that are in the book, that she actually writes, those were difficult because they're emotional. And how do you explain to someone about a decision that you made that caused someone else's life? How do you convey that in a letter to someone? you know, that was a very difficult. And I remember talking to a friend of mine. I actually read the letter to her, and I was like, you know, tell me what you think about this. You know, does it hit on the emotions that it should? And even writing the kind of the poetic moments in the book from when she goes to the club and things of that nature. She goes to spoken word, and you know, so those were elements in the book that were difficult, because you are talking about someone lost their life because of something that you did or didn't do or indirectly did or just were involved in. So yeah, that was difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine that that would be
Yeah,
difficult to
yeah.
write, and because
Mm-hmm.
it's difficult for that character.
Yeah,
It's a lot of emotion and guilt that
yes.
they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, looking back on this novel and the many others that you've written before it, how has your writing developed over the years as you've written more and more?
You know, it's really helped me to kind of not be afraid to move around. You know, some of my books are told through more of a Southern flair. Some of my books have younger characters, such as Blue Butterfly. Some of my characters, like this particular character, where she's 27 years old, she's grown. You know, so you know, as I continue to write books, it's you know, it helps me to kind of step out of that comfort zone and to write characters that are in um, different aspects of their life. They're in different direction. You know, they have different things going on, and they're at different ages. And so, yeah, that has been, I think, the most rewarding thing, is to not have all the characters kind of be the same. They're always in the same, you know, the same space or the same time period. You know, I have some characters in one of my previous books, you know, it was more in the 60s and the 70s, and this book is the 80s and the 90s. And, you know, so it's just being able to play around with timelines. Yeah, so that's something. I think even with my next book, it'll be very different.
Well, since you brought up your next book, what you know, what can you tell us? Can you tell us anything, or even if you can't talk about that book in particular, you know, what areas would you like to explore in the future?
You know, I've always wanted, no, my next book is not this, but I've always wanted to write sort of a crime fiction book. So that is something that I've started. I haven't actually finished that book, but that's something that I would like to write in the future. My next book that I have that I'm working on is called Saving Rain. And it is the story of a woman who is broken. She's completely broken. She's snapped. She's disconnected herself from life because she found out that her husband was killed by his mistress. So
oh, wow.
yeah, it's a very it's a very different book than any of my other books, and so it's very challenging to write this book. And yeah, so yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all turns out. You know, I was talking to someone, they're like, "Oh, I'm excited to read it," and I said, "Yeah, I am too." I'm excited to read it. I'm excited to just get it written.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very, very different book. So yeah, looking forward to getting that one done.
Wow. No, that is very different, but that's really exciting. Is
Yeah.
that the kind of thing that you like to read, or like who are your writing influences? Who do you look up to?
Oh wow. I'm so all over the place. I do. I read so many different type of books. I read it. One of my favorite authors is Christina Schwartz. She wrote a book called Drowning Ruth. I really loved her book because it had a really good twist in it. You know, it wasn't like multiple twists, but it was just one that was just like, dang, you know, it was like, wow, I didn't see that coming. So I love that book, Drowning Ruth. I like Nicholas Sparks. Kimberly Larson Roby, I've read a couple of her books. So I'm all over the place in terms of reading. I don't really stick to one genre. I like quite a few genres. So yes, I would like to write different genres as well. Yes.
Well, I imagine that reading a wide array of things allows you to be a better writer, because even if you're only writing in one genre, you're going to pick up different, techniques from different people.
Yes, absolutely. It's important. Some authors are afraid to read other books because they feel like they're going to mimic that style. But it can enhance your style of writing. You especially if you're struggling with, developing the character, developing the plot, doing emotions in the book. So those things you can learn from other authors. So yeah, reading is very important.
Well, I mean, we're about coming up on time here, and I guess one of the most important questions I could ask you is what do you hope that readers take away from this book, Someone Like Me?
Well, I really hope that readers take away the fact that I think I mentioned before that despite the mistakes that we make or that we may have made in the past as women, that we can really empower a better future for ourselves. We have to understand that, yes, the journey that we go through as women is hard. The struggle is real, as they say, but the positive effects that can come out of it are priceless. And so that's really the message that I hope people walk away with when they, get to the end of the book.
And that is a really important message for anybody to learn, but especially for us women. Yeah. So where can people find you, and where can they find the book?
Yeah, so you can always connect with me through my website, which is MarionLThomas.com, and it's without the www. So yeah, you can always connect with me through my website. That'll get you to my social media accounts. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. But please, by all means, go out and pick up a copy of the book. It is available on Amazon, of course. It's also available on Barnes & Noble and Target. So wherever you shop for books, please go out there and pick up a copy. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you for the support.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Marian. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yes, go pick up a copy of Someone Like Me. Thanks again. It's been lovely.
Thank you so much for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Take care.
Okay, thank you.